What's going on, Mighty Fine? Back for another week of price action analysis. Been doing it for a long time. Pretty dang accurate. Thanks for tuning in. Before we dive in this week, I want to just highlight something that I am doing for you guys. I started a public Discord server where I send out this video, but also I send out charts and notes for all the pairs that I cover. You get more on there than you're going to get with just this YouTube video. This will always still get posted here, but it's going to come a little bit later than what you get in the Discord. So you get a little bit of a sneak preview plus some more free content for you to use throughout the week. Guide yourself in a high time frame price action analysis of these big major pairs. Also, I might just send out a link, fuck around and do a little community engagement, maybe run a little educational session. Who knows? Join that Discord server, stay in touch, find out what's going on. Link is down below this video. If you want to join into that, if you want to just be here, man, sub, like this video so other people can get it. Share it with a friend who trades or is trying to learn about trading, whatever. It's free. If you want to take the not free option, mightyfinefx.com. My community is open. It's affordable. It's packed with content. I do monthly group sessions where we talk about things. This week, we did a deep dive into equities and indices, so stocks and how I intraday trade those. A little bit more of an advanced one, but a very dope session nonetheless. I do these sessions every single month, at least once with my group, and then every day I do live trading sessions in the mornings around NYSE where I trade stocks, stock market indexes like Nasdaq and S&P. Anyways, without further ado, let's hop into this week's analysis. First, we're going to start with the US dollar. And overall, we're kind of in this ranged intra-week price action right now, right? No discernible flow in this past week. Buyers or sellers, no real strict control here. However, underlying, we do have buyers in control. We are bullish overall, as highlighted by this weekly trend leg arrow here in this green box. You'll see these notes down here for you to read as well on all of these pairs. So if you want to pause, give those a read, that may help you as well. I've identified some key levels as well. And when we move into the H4, you'll start to see these directional arrows as usual, just indicating my bias if these levels were to be broken. If we break out of this range, I'm anticipating further bullish movement. If we break below the H4 demand, I will watch the daily demand level, right, where these buys started to come in. And if we get below that, it's very likely we're going to come back down and retest this daily higher low level here. Any movement below that, any order flow like lower highs and lower lows below this level will indicate a change in our overall bias into a more bearish bias. Until then, I'm still resuming with my bullish bias, and I'm looking for a transition that leads to new higher lows and higher highs to retest the trend high and possibly expand upwards. First, it's got to break out of this range. So until it does that, it's really hard to say what will be the next move. However, underlying, like I said, I have a bullish bias on this heading into this week. AUDUSD is the first FX pair we're going to look at this week. Pretty dang bullish and quite divergent considering our read on the US dollar, meaning it's kind of the opposite of a lot of these other pairs, right? It has been moving up pretty voraciously while these other US dollar backed pairs were moving down. Aussie dollar is very strong right now. We're heading into an interesting little spot of liquidity up here that I do want to highlight for you from this weekly and monthly push to the downside. However, we are very clearly in a bullish flow on our daily chart. There's a lot of volume pointing up. So at some point, they're going to need to refuel the car. They're going to need to put more orders in that gas tank if they want to keep this thing going up. What I'm going to watch for is a break of something like this H4 demand, which may indicate a pullback has started. And then I will look for a pullback either into this intraday major demand or all the way down here into the daily trend leg demand that I have marked out on the bottom. Breaker bounce situation on both of these. Overall long bias, I would love a pullback. I'm not going to take anything hastily up top, but if we do take a long position on this puppy, then just be aware of this current trend high or wherever that lives and this liquidity sitting up top. Anything above this, it should explode. So if you were to break below maybe this intraday major demand and do something like this, then you could look for a potential counter trend trade down to the downside, very clear target down here as well. So do keep that in mind. Anything below this, you may change your immediate bias, but I'm going to keep an overall long bias on this thing as long as it can stay above this daily trend leg demand. GBPUSD is in a bit of a retracement phase right now. We can see that we have a daily break of flow right here, which indicates that buyers are taking some control. We have some demand right here on the daily chart to watch as well. We'll look at this in the H4 in just a second. And again, notes up here and in that Discord if you want to check that out. Should price push above this flow high, first area that I'm going to watch is around 1.34 over here, where we saw this supply extend the trend to the downside. Secondly, I would watch this weekly supply zone up top where we see very strong sell orders come in, resulting in a big voluminous push that expanded that trend. Let's look at the H4. Here's some directional bias arrows for you as well. We're a bit ranged on this one as well, which kind of makes sense, right? Because our dollar index is a bit ranged up as well. That being said, very strong demand right here. Price is still staying above it. And it looks like price is kind of trying to transition bullish, but hasn't established an order flow yet. So I want to watch this red daily and H4 zone and zone here. We can see that if price can stay above this, buyers are still in control. However, if price breaks below it, I would anticipate a deeper pullback into the 1.302 to 1.300 region, this daily demand on the bottom. I've also highlighted a couple of little liquidity pockets from the left over here to consider if price pushes into new trend lows. However, I'm kind of looking for a deeper pullback. So it may be that we look to continue a long trade this week and then trade it up into one of these two levels that I just mentioned, look for an intraday transition there, and then take a more pro-trend short position either later in the week or heading into next week. Let's look at GBPJPY, very, very bullish pair. Very bullish. We talked about this range for the past couple of weeks. We see this big expansion past the top of the range, tons of volume. Right? Major buy orders have happened for the past 2 weeks. This is a very strong level of demand. Keep in mind, this is the origin of your expansion leg. I have it marked as daily demand here. We also have some H4 demand we'll look at in a second. I put a circle over this. Clearly, this is where price really jumped and hopped into this new expansion. So do keep an eye on that. If price were to pull back into here and then present an intraday transition within this region, you may look to take a continuation long position into new highs. So need a little bit more data, see how the week opens up. It's going to need some more orders if this trend is going to continue. So the question really is, when will we break this bullish flow? That will start our retracement flow. Then when can we time that transition out of retracement into pro trend trade again? Notes down here for you to review, again, in the Discord. EURJPY, last FX pair we're going to look at for the week. Also quite bullish, but this one's a little funky. When we look at this, this is a weekly break of flow. This is a daily break of flow. Buyers are clearly in control. However, we're heading into this major supply up top from the weekly and daily here. If you look left on the weekly and the monthly, you'll see this very strong level of supply. Then I put a daily zone within that. If price can continue up into this, just be careful, because we know that sellers have accessed that price point before. And if you're taking long trades into it, it may want to be somewhere that you watch for a transition and a potential TP. This is the same kind of deal. At some point, just like GBPJPY, EURJPY is going to need some more orders. They got to refuel the vehicle if they want to keep it going on up. So we're kind of just waiting for a new pullback into higher low, into higher high. Something that looks like this. Like, let's just say it breaks below this H4 and major intra-week demand that I have marked out here for you. If it breaks below both of these and then transitions, you would look to take this pro trend trade into new highs and then up into that. So we need some sort of pullback here, a new accumulation of buy orders, and then we can look to take that pro trend trade to the upside. If it just pushes right up into this, I don't get a pullback, I don't get a trade. So that's kind of where I'm at with this one. Not super high on my priority this list this week, and then GBPJPY is, and the next one we're going to cover, gold, is also high on my priority list just because of the geopolitical stuff that's going on with Europe, Russia, the US, and Ukraine around oil, around land war, around blah, 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 blah. We have seen this thing move in bullish as hell, right? Big old push to the upside. Then relative to this, if we look at the weekly, for example, and this is, is a little jumbled because I got a bunch of shit on here. But if we look at the weekly, big trend to the upside here, looks like we're getting that pullback. And then last week overall closed kind of bullish. What we can see here on a smaller time frame, the next one down, is that we're getting a bit of a transition, in my opinion. I think this was the pullback. I think we're transitioning into bullish flow now. And when we look at the H4, it's presented quite nicely. Here we go. Break of flow right over here. All the supply is broken. Then we see this order flow coming in. If you follow my cursor, new buys coming in like I have here, attempting a transition into a bullish expansion phase, meaning we're attempting to transition into this new leg to the upside. I've highlighted a couple of liquidity pockets for you over here that you do want to consider if price moves up into it. My gut says this thing is going up this week. However, just like everything else, it might need some more orders. This very well could have been the retest. And we would know if this was the retest if this thing breaks past this flow high and it pushes up into new highs. So if we see this flow high broken, I think this was the retest, and I think it's just going to keep on ripping. Look for an expansion, break, and retest to the upside into these pockets, and then potentially up into that trend high up top, the all-time highs near the lower 2000s. If price breaks below the H4 demand, however, watch these levels here. Anything below this daily minor demand that I have here will make me want to play into this demand, which I consider my daily higher low. Anything below this, the overall bias changes to bearish. So anything below 1878.095, line right there. Anything below that, I am looking for a bearish break and retest, but everything is pointing up on this on the high time frames and the overall trend. So do keep that in mind. Long bias for this thing this week. Also kind of divergent to the US dollar. Both the dollar and gold have been acting as safe havens through all this. So it's going to be a little volatile. It is subject to change. It's a constantly developing thing that we have with all this tension in Europe and the relationships globally. So, you know, not the easiest pair to trade, but I do see that it could be a really good potential. Keep that in mind as you move into this week. And that's it, guys. FX pairs, one commodity that I have on the radar, GJ and gold are on the top of my list. I trade Nasdaq every single morning, and then I sprinkle in my FX pairs and gold as a little longer term investment opportunity. Again, if you want to learn about any of that, check out my website, join that free public Discord server. Link is down below this video. And as always, trade smart, trade safe, and have fun. Mighty Fine out.